This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Ladies and gentlemen of the internet.
This is Steve's house.
Mr. Stevie Wonder. Mr. Stevie Wonder. Mr. Stevie Wonder. Mr. Stevie Wonder.
It's the year of Living Stevie.
Mr. Stevie Wonder. Mr. Stevie Wonder.
Hey everybody, I'm glad that you're here with us on our first premiere podcast of the Year of Living Stevie. I'm your host, Daryl Bean. Thank you for joining us today. And I really think this is going to be a good time. I hope that you enjoy what we're doing here. So basically what this podcast is it's a discussion of creativity and art and music and learning a little bit about some different artists through the lens of the music of Stevie Wonder. And I'll kind of explain a little bit of that later. But the idea kind of came to me in November, maybe October of last year. So this is 2016. And there were a lot of things going on in my life that I was a little depressed about. And, things that lots of people were depressed about during that time period. But there was just a lot of things that were kind of troubling me. And a lot of things were really worrying me. And I was sitting at home and I had this instinct of, I really need, I need to listen to some more Stevie Wonder. I don't know what it was. It was this like security blanket kind of a feeling or something that just kind of pulled at me, but that I needed this thing in my life. And the more I thought about that and how unusual I thought that thought was for me, I started thinking about the fact that in 20 some years of playing music professionally and, probably 30 years of being a music fan, and talking to other people that really, really like music. One of the things that I've noticed is that very few, if anybody that I've talked to doesn't like Stevie Wonder. Almost everybody I've ever talked to that's a fan of music is also a fan of Stevie Wonder. And there's a lot of reasons why that might be so. It might be, the virtuoso musicianship. That's tough to say. Virtuoso musicianship. The virtuoso musicianship on the records, or maybe it's the cool songs. And there's some of the classic songs of popular music are songs that Stevie Wonder wrote. Even ones that he didn't sing, for that matter. Some of the great Motown hits and on, are songs that Stevie Wonder had a hand in creating that maybe he didn't even sing or play on necessarily. Or it's just his personality. One of the things that I always hear from people when they talk about Stevie Wonder is how Stevie's joy just comes through in all of his music, whether they're happy songs or whether they're not. Maybe it's a song like Livin' for the City, which is serious and has sort of a political message behind it. And yet there's still this joy and this energy in it that kind of translates through to everybody. So I thought Stevie Wonder would be a really interesting catalyst for conversations with artists about how they make music and how they see their work fitting into the world. And so far with the conversations that I've had with artists, that's kind of borne out. Like that seems to have happened, that we've been able to have some pretty deep conversations and get into some interesting topics through the lens of talking about Stevie Wonder's music. But on top of that, you also get to hear some performances of Stevie Wonder classic songs by all these different artists in the style that they play in. So we're going to hear some interpretations of classic Stevie Wonder songs done in a variety of different styles. We're going to hear some Americana. We're going to hear some jazz. We're going to hear a heavy rock band all playing these songs in their own style. And that's going to be really interesting. I actually even joked in this podcast that I feel a little selfish doing this podcast because I feel like really what I'm doing is making a mixtape for myself of some of my favorite bands and artists singing songs that I really, really love. But hopefully you'll enjoy them too. I think you will. My guests on the podcast today are an excellent band and also really good friends of mine that go by the name of the Social Bandits. Social Bandits have been playing around the Detroit area for several years now, and before that, they, as youngsters, like barely out of high school, were in a band called Infinity Hour, and they've really, they've been doing some really, really great work. They very recently appeared at the Detroit by Detroit concert as Wolfpack, and the year before that they were Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, and they're super cool guys. They're going to play a couple great songs for you. They have some really great thoughts about music and about what they do as artists, as well as some very interesting tidbits about Stevie Wonder. Now, here's one thing where I have to call myself out a little bit. Because it was my first interview, I had all kinds of stuff going on. I bought this mixer and I was worried about it working right. So my brain was in 20 different directions when we did this interview, and I forgot to have them introduce themselves individually when we started the interview. In the future, I will make sure that I do that so that you know whose voice goes with who. But just so you know who the members of the band are, Jesse Medawar is the lead singer and guitarist in the band. Brad Rude plays bass and also is a lead vocalist and background vocalist in the band. Jared Bentley plays lead guitar, and Dylan Walsh plays the drums and percussion, and Evan Mercer is the keyboardist in the band. And we also have a special guest, Artist Grace, singing background vocals. She's a member of a number of different bands in town, including the wonderful Dan Rafferty Band, where she sings along with some of the greatest musicians in Detroit, and she is one of the best singers in Detroit as well. So I hope you enjoy it. Here is the Social Bandits. All right, well, let's do this. Social Bandits. Hey. And we got a bathroom break right out of the gate. This is a disaster already on wheels. I love it. But so yeah, guys had a gig last night. So I'm amazed we're all still upright and all that sort of thing and alive and whatnot. So how'd it go? How was the gig last night?
Oh, it was great. It was awesome. Loving Touch killed it. 4 great bands, and it was a great time, man, for sure.
So Loving Touch, I was thinking about that on the way over here, and it's like, this is a place that's kind of become really, like, popular, and it's been, like, a really, really cool concert venue, but the name, it's kind of killing it a little bit for me. I don't know, isn't that a little weird? Doesn't it, like, when you heard of it the first time, like, the Loving
It is strange. I did learn of the actual history of why it's called that.
Oh, there we go, okay.
Is because that used to be a massage parlor with an option of a happy ending.
That's funny.
There's a massage sign in there I see that says Loving Touch right above the men's bathroom. Yes. I was always wondering what that was about.
Well,
That's it.
and a little personal history. I'm going to go out there and say something weird, but when I first started playing in Pennsylvania, the band that I was in, our rehearsal room was attached to a massage parlor, not unlike the origins of the Loving Touch, which was kind of crazy and weird. And I was like 19 when I was in this band, and like green, like super green. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and like I was pretty sheltered. And I remember one time, like the guy who owned the massage parlor also was a guy in the band, and I'm a little almost nervous to use names or anything like that, because I'm still a little unclear on the like legality of the whole thing. Like, so they do what in there, and you can do that? That's okay. Yeah. But he sent me in there one time to get something like a notebook or something. So here's like 19-year-old goober me, like going into this massage parlor of ill repute, like. I need this notebook, and I got in and out as fast as I possibly could, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die here, I'm gonna get herpes or something, I don't know. So well, that's interesting, because I wondered about that. I'm like, the Loving
there you go
Touch.
It makes much more sense now.
Stands out.
It does stand out. That's kind of true. It's kind of true. So we're here. And to start out with, maybe it would be kind of cool to find out a little bit about where you guys come from as musicians. Like, one of the things that's always kind of interesting to hear from people is when you started playing music kind of on your own volition, if you will, like instead of being in a band, like school band or in school choir or orchestra or something like that, like of your own choice to make music. So, just kind of, if anybody's got an interesting story about that to ring in.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up. I started taking piano lessons when I was like 5 or 6, and back when you're that young, to me that wasn't really like, I'm going in to learn how to play music. It was like, that's something to do. My older brother's doing it, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And I had practiced for a long, I had played, I'd taken lessons up until like high school and stuff. But it wasn't until like 7th or 8th grade where I realized people can do this for a living. Mm-hmm. Wait, what? I heard that and I was like, wait, are you serious? Like, that immediately I was like, yep, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And then that's when I kind of started to get serious about it, and like not only taking lessons like in academia, but like wanting to form my own band and like really like listening to records and then later going on to major in music. So
what was the thing that taught you that? Like, where did you learn? Can you remember specifically how you figured out, hey, wait, I can do this for a living? Whoa, what?
Actually, I think it was growing up I grew up in Livonia, and some really good friends of mine, my friend Matt Ryan and their whole family, they had a good friend. His name's Dale Greiza. He's a piano player.
Right. Yeah.
And like I met him when I was in middle school, mm-hmm. and I was like, oh, what does he do? They're like, oh, he plays piano. I'm like, is that it?
And
like, oh, you can do that? That's really cool. It was that kind of thing, and like slowly, just started to realize like, oh, I like this.
Yeah, that was mind-blowing for me, too. I remember when I first met somebody that made money and made, like, a significant chunk of their living playing mm-hmm. music. And I was a little older. I think I was maybe 14 or 15 mm-hmm. when I met somebody. And it seemed like there was this, like, before that, almost like a strata. Like, there was, Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney and, like, stars. And they made a living making music. But, like, there was nothing in between. It was like, you're either that...
Or a starving artist.
Or you're sitting in your basement practicing. Right. And I didn't know about anything in the middle. And then I met somebody in my high school that came in to do, like, lessons, like group lessons or something like that. Right. And, like, they introduced themselves as a professional musician. And I went, what? Wait a minute. You can do this for money? Sweet. Like, I can do this for money? So that was kind of mind-blowing.
Totally, man.
Yeah, totally. How about you, Brad?
I started playing music shortly after I saw School of Rock in 6th or 7th grade, somewhere in there. And I just wanted to be a rock star. And that's it.
Very cool. So school, and for those of you listening out there, you might have picked up on the fact that Social Bandits might be a little on the younger side, say, than me. Like, I think I was, my gosh, I was in graduate school when School of Rock came out. If that's yikes, ouch. So yeah, that's really, really interesting. As you've been, how long have you guys been a band?
Been a band for probably just over 5 years now. I saw a post just the other day on Facebook coming up to share 4 years ago when we were jamming like one of our first shows ever, and it was crazy. So it's been right around there, right around 5 years.
I think I saw that picture of like very clean cut, Magoo-ish looking, guys on a stage playing. It was really funny. It was kind of cute, like baby pictures.
Oh yeah, Crossroads.
Was that at Billy's Tipping In? I think
that was our very first show. Social Bandits.
Yep.
Billy's Tipping In.
Wow. First Battle of the Bands.
Yes.
The very first Battle of the Bands we ever won.
Yes.
Yeah. The only one, actually.
Yes. Right. It's true.
Right on. And then, so in that time, you guys have done, I know you've done one CD, and I think you had another one before that, like an EP.
Before that, yeah.
An EP.
4
and then,
songs and one live tune. We had Painted Gray on there live.
Very cool.
Well. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So what do you feel like in the last 5 years, like, how has your band grown from those like early like wet behind the ears gigs that you were just talking about in those pictures? Like, how do you feel like your band has grown, and where would you like to grow beyond that? And it could be professionally or musically or any of those kind of things.
I think we've definitely grown in both of those aspects you just named, both professionally and musically for sure. We've always kind of been instrumentalists, at heart as well. We've always tried to really be good at our own instrument on top of just good songwriters or good bandmates or whatever. So everyone's definitely improved like at their own instrument on top of playing together and just learning more about music and what it means to be in a band and kind of where your instrument sits in the mix, as well as just being a songwriter and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've grown professionally too, realizing what it takes to get a gig and how to act when you're trying to book shows and how to act around other bands and treat other musicians and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. It's been a huge growth, but it's been a great experience, and we hope to just, I guess, keep growing in the same way. Just try and, figure out even more about what it takes and be more respectful and more professional and grow more on our own instruments. And
Cool. How about like in the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself, or would you like to see yourself in the next 5 years as a band?
I'd say touring.
yeah, definitely.
You know, that's the goal, is to get out of this state and, see the world, play music.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's
It'd be great to be only playing music, like just playing as the Social Bandits, just touring and sustaining life off of that would be ideal for sure.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, really, really cool. Well, like in the next, let's say on a short-term basis, like in the next year, any big plans that you can talk about that aren't, like super secret, like,
I think we're just trying to play bigger shows and put on our own shows and really hype those up and, get more notice on the Detroit scene.
Definitely. Yeah, get into that Detroit fan base for sure. Got to start with the hometown, So we've been here for a while, and we've played a lot of other college towns around too, Grand Rapids and Mount Pleasant and stuff like that. But we realized we really got to try and hit the hometown, just Detroit, and trying to get everybody here knowing about the Social Bandits first.
Sure.
Work a lot on our internet presence.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Working on videos and getting out as much material as possible in different lights to try and catch as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed a lot, and that, if you're listening and you're really interested in the Social Bandits, especially after hearing them play in a little bit, that you can find things like Dylan's got a video series of drumming videos he's been doing that have been really, even though I don't play drums, are really like interesting and cool, just because I'm kind of a dork and I like to learn about music. I don't know, but they're really well done and they're super cool, but they're super nerdy. I love that. So I'm a nerd. I'm a big time nerd. That's pretty true. That's probably going to become revealed more and more as this goes on. But yeah, those are cool. And then you guys have done some short videos to kind of pump, like when the CD was coming out. You had a couple of short videos that you did to kind of put out, and that's definitely like a thing that's changed a lot from what I've seen in the time that I've been involved in music, is the ability that bands have now to promote themselves and not have to rely on outside sources or try to get interviews and all that stuff. Like, you have a lot of power in your own hands to be able to do that, which is super cool. What do you think the biggest frustration is being in a band in the year 2017 that maybe bands in the past, like even as recently as, let's say, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, what's a frustration do you think that you have?
I think that it's artistic-minded people don't necessarily want to feel like they have to post on Facebook every day and, constantly engage fans in that way. 20 years ago, you'd put out records and hopefully get played on the radio and play live, and that's all you had to do.
Here's a legitimate point, though, is that aside from having to work hard, which is obviously always going to be there, people legitimately don't spend as much money on actual music anymore. Like, they're going to concerts and stuff just as much, so hence you have to go out and play, which we mentioned we want to get on the road and play. But people really don't buy CDs or anything like that. Like, so unless you have a lot of followers on Spotify, the streaming services and stuff like that, you're not going to really get much of a revenue source from selling CDs outside of what you do on your own, even if you were on a big record label, it seems, unless you're like the Taylor Swifts. But that maybe would be an obstacle for some. But there's other ways that you can make up for it these days, There's so many ways to get out there.
That's definitely true. And one of the things I've always felt was really interesting about a Taylor Swift, for example, I didn't know that her dad is like a hedge fund manager. So one of the reasons why she was able to make her career as profitable as she was and put herself in the position that she was, that she had this person that was really astute in business, kind of guiding what she was doing all the way across. I mean, she's very smart about business too, but
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she's insanely talented, right?
Right, and very, very business savvy
helps,
too, and that doesn't hurt either. But
Teardrops on our guitar.
Teardrops on her guitar. Strums the strings. Bling. How about over on this side? Did you guys think of any frustrations or things that are uniquely kind of challenging about being a band in 2017?
Definitely, I would say just standing out. I think that's kind of always been a big challenge, you know. But now I feel like there's just there's so many people doing it. Everyone can do it from their basement or from their home setup in their studio. So I feel like there's a lot more. Although there's always been a lot of bands, and like I said, you've always had to do something to make yourself unique, you know. But
so many
definitely,
genres.
I think coming up with good ideas for social media posts and stuff like that, just trying to stand out as.
It's not like back in the '70s when everybody listened to Elton John or everybody listened to Led Zeppelin. And we have a lot of people listening to Maroon 5 and a lot of people listening to Taylor Swift or Adele or people listening to
EDM stuff,
Incubus,
subcategories,
getting
so many different genres,
music or
house, dubstep.
Even the hipster guys who are all into the underground stuff.
The internet raised the bar on like the level of talent that the average person is exposed to as well.
Definitely.
You know, because before that you had what was in your town and the bands that came to town. But now anyone can film it, and so like there could be some kid in his basement who's amazing that you never would have heard 20 years ago. And today he could get a big following.
Right.
To say some frustration isn't necessarily the best way to put it. It's just it's good. There's
a challenge.
There's
It is
a lot
a
of
challenge.
It's just more. It's more challenging in a way, I guess.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, makes a lot of things easier for sure. But at the same
Just
time, that's the same
depends.
thing that makes it challenging.
Yeah.
More
That everyone can do it. It's so easy.
Yeah, cool. One of the things I was thinking about, because we were just talking about how one of the challenges that you have as a band is standing out, and kind of making yourself not necessarily above the crowd, although that's always a nice thing too, to make sure that your product or the playing or the songwriting is a notch better than everybody else, but it's hard to do given the amount of talent that's out there too. So it's more like cutting your own channel. Like we were talking earlier about the band Wolfpack, and how they had this really unique way of using social media and using YouTube videos and using all that kind of stuff to try and kind of cut their own pathway through things. And how like I kind of feel like one of the things that they did that was really smart was that they got people to know them, at least their online personalities, that like they felt like they're their four dorky friends that just happen to be really awesome musicians too at the same time. But there's like that, oh, it's those guys kind of thing.
Those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So but something I was thinking about when I was on my way over was what's the last album or the last like recorded thing, or not last, but maybe the most recent recorded single album or something like that you've really, really, really looked forward to? Because that's something I feel like I've missed a lot in music. Is like I used to be like, oh my gosh, so and so's putting out a record. It's coming out in 3 months. Oh, I can't wait.
I have one really good one right now. It's Kendrick Lamar's new album. I've been since the day that To Pimp a Butterfly came out, and I fell in love with that record. I've been like waiting for the next thing for him to come out with, and he had the the B-sides from To Pimp a Butterfly, but
Untitled, Unmastered one.
Yeah.
But like, for him to come out with a new album, I'm really excited about that one.
There's a lot of heat on that. I know that a lot of people were really enthusiastic and excited. It's out to stream, right? Like, I don't know if you can buy it yet, but can you stream it yet?
One of his songs is out. I don't think the whole.
Oh, it's just the one. Yeah, it's the Untitled 4 or something like that, or the Heart.
He just came out with a single. That album was the B-sides. That was the one that he just mentioned.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Yeah, cool.
It's the B-sides from his previous album, but he's about to drop a new, totally new album, I should say.
Awesome. Nice.
That's cool.
Anyone else? I was really excited. There's a band called Everything Everything that I really, really like. And they're just this really unique English, like, synth pop kind of band, but not really. They're like rock, and they just do really, really weird stuff. And like, it's one of those things where like, they're so unique and so kind of singular that when I see something, they just put out like a 10-second video of Waves, right?
Oh, okay.
And people were freaking out, like, "Oh, what does this mean? Oh my gosh!" Like, this must be a new album. Oh, I don't know,
awesome.
and it's like to kind of inspire that kind of interest from people just from a 10-second video of crashing waves. It's kind of weird, but anyone else that has something that they're kind of.
It's kind of going in the opposite direction, but I'm pretty excited about Roger Waters' next album.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Just coming up. Just based off of that, it's like a 20-second clip.
A lot of strings.
Sounds pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like his first one in a while.
A long time. I think the last one was Amused to Death, which I was in high school when that came out. So it's, 50 or 60 years or something like that.
60 centuries.
The wax cylinder came out.
I'm really looking forward to. I don't know when they're going to put it out or if they've even talked about it, but I really like the band Hiatus Coyote. They're something special to me. They're from Australia. Just a quartet. I think what they have is really special, really unique sound. And I saw them live open for Erykah Badu a couple of months ago, and that was like they were perfect. And they talk about how they draw a lot of their inspiration from Stevie Wonder.
Very interesting. We may have to come back to that as a pivot point into some Stevie-oriented sort of stuff.
Yes.
So I guess before we get into Stevie-related sort of stuff, I guess the last question I would have is what do you see as your mission as musicians? Like, either as a band, I don't know if you guys have thought or talked about that, because it's kind of a weird thing. What's our mission as a band? But sometimes people do have like a mission statement. But as a musician, like, even if it's individually, like, what do you feel like your like best reason for making music is?
For myself personally, I feel like I just want people to know me, what I have to offer as an artist. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it,
So like from know you as in a recognizable sort of a thing, or more like a communication?
No,
sort of
communication
thing?
for sure.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be nice to be like a star. I don't think that's not my goal really. It was when I started, but now it's just about making a connection with only a few people if possible. People that'll just listen to my music forever. That's kind of the goal.
That is a pretty good goal.
I know what you mean. It's a good way to communicate with people and really just get them to know you and
timeless.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
I want to give people like the same feeling that my favorite music gives me. I think everyone knows like the feeling when you get the tingling down your spine.
Definitely.
You get the chills from your favorite music. I want to give people that feeling.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a lot just like I feel really good when I play music, and I love it, and I will always love it, and I hope other people like it too. It's just like
make people feel good.
Yes,
Oh, well.
That's fine. I have myself to please, so, which can be hard sometimes. But
our artist has been really quiet over here. So how about you? Anything? I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm totally doing it, but I don't mean to.
It's just an ultimate goal for me being a musician would just be to put out something that I could say that I worked hard on. Like, this is what I put my heart and soul in, and even like what Brad said, that even if like 3 or 4 people saw it and enjoyed it, that would mean the world to me. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't look too much. I mean, I'm not the most outgoing person as it is. I'd like to think I am, but I'm really not. And so I don't think about fame, and if that comes with it, then that's cool. But I never think about that when I'm thinking about my music. So I don't know. It's more of just like a personal feling of like warmness, and that's not a word, is it?
No, it works. Yeah, it works. Yeah, it works for me.
It makes you feel good. Yeah, music just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I like the whole idea behind like why Stevie Wonder was kind of the sort of like, I don't know, the core of the podcast. Actually, for me, it was because I was really depressed after the election. Not to get political or anything, and I'm not, but I was kind of disappointed, and I was really, really like just depressed and really like, just kind of heavy-hearted about it. And I just, in the back of my head, all I could think of is like, I need to listen to more Stevie. I need more Stevie in my life, and it was like, and then like it just kind of kept going. And I'm like, I don't know. And feel free to correct me if you've had a different experience. I can't, in 42 years, think of anybody I've ever met that said they didn't like Stevie Wonder.
Nope.
I don't think so either. But if someone came along and said it, I don't think I would trust that person.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe that. I mean, I've even had people like bag on the Beatles.
Oh,
to me, like, oh, they're so overrated, man. You know,
I've
but
heard that more than Stevie.
I don't.
Yeah.
Hip to hate.
People don't talk to those people.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's really interesting that that's the case, whether they're into music or whether they're not into music. Like, everybody seems to kind of like, not only like Stevie, but there's just this like immediate connection, you know, like that. And it's weird how, I don't know if you've noticed this sort of like almost like a zeitgeist of Stevie Wonder, where all of a sudden Stevie's just popping up all over the place. Like, he was on that carpool karaoke thing, and then like, and he came up a couple other times recently. Yeah, and it's amazing, right? I mean, it's totally great. So I wonder if wink. So one of the things I was wondering about was like if you guys had any particular stories from your own like back history, like maybe what the first time you heard Stevie Wonder was, or like what stands out the most to you in your relationship, either as a listener or a musician with Stevie Wonder? It's kind of a big question, but you know.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely remember the first time I ever like really recognized Stevie Wonder. I must have heard it before because I knew like, you know, when that clap part comes in, I'm like, I know that kind of thing. Like I knew the groove. You know, I recognized it. But the first time I ever heard it was in, I'm not sure if it was a Disney movie, but Eddie Murphy flick, Haunted Mansion.
Really?
Yes. Haunted Mansion. I was a little kid.
Didn't see it.
Superstition.
All right, yeah, makes sense.
And I was like, oh man, I know this, and I recognized the song. That was my first time ever really like knew that I recognized it. I don't think it was Stevie who did the song it wasn't his version in the movie,
right?
But I knew that it was like I knew that too.
Yeah,
later on,
it was
Raven.
Raven.
Like,
That's so
yes,
Raven.
it was Raven. Totally, yes, that's right. It was, but yeah, I knew that like I recognized it and that it was a sound I had heard before, and later found out it was Stevie Wonder. But that was the first time I really remember like hearing
Haunted
the
Mansion.
Stevie tune. Yeah.
Bam. There you go.
Brad, I like your story.
Yeah, mine was just Wild Wild West, Will Smith.
Oh,
yeah, because I wish, right? They sampled for that. Yeah.
My mom, actually, when she was in college, I think was when Songs in the Key of Life came out, and she always said that was her favorite album. And recently, when Songs in the Key of Life, he did the tour for like, I don't know, it was like 40-year anniversary or something crazy like that. 30 years, I think. And my mom got us tickets and we went and saw it. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Sweet.
Same here.
Yeah, I don't know when the first time I heard him though. Wow. It was.
But that's a standout, obviously.
Yeah. My mom always talks about how that was her favorite album through college and stuff.
I think I don't specifically remember the first time I listened to Stevie, but he's definitely been a big part of my life, my entire life. I always heard him on the radio, and my parents would listen to him a lot. And I realized that every time I would recognize Stevie, it became more important to me. Like, like I would listen to him as a kid and with my parents, and like, oh, I remember this song, yeah. And then like later revisiting it in middle school, like when I got more serious about music, and I was like, oh shit,
yeah,
Stevie is the man. Oh man, this is really funky, and like, okay, cool. And then high school came, and I was like, oh, wow, I really started to understand more the intricacies of just his music and appreciate not only his songwriting, but like just how everything just jams and is funky. And then even to college, I went to Wayne State, and even all the professors were like, yep, Stevie's the truth. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah. And so, it really is. Like at Wayne State, Dwight Adams, he's a trumpet professor. He plays with Stevie.
Okay.
And he's the man. But it wasn't until, really just recently that, like, having, like, studied jazz and, like, grown up on pop music is that Stevie is the perfect mesh of both of those things. In that he takes jazz harmony and composition, but ties it in with pop singer-songwritery stuff, making it interesting to the musicians, not only to listen to and play, but accessible to everybody. And that's why I was just like, seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. He's like in that perfect time period where like Steely Dan was kind of in their heights, and there's just tons of other groups like that where they were blending jazz harmony and the complex sort of colors that has, and then making it pop basically, and that the ears of the people on radio were kind of primed to that. It's interesting. I'm like, not to bag on anybody, but it's like I can't imagine in 20 years being like, yeah, man, Maroon 5, that's the truth. Man. You know what I mean? Like, no offense, Adam Levine's awesome and everything, but whatever.
It's not.
But yeah,
right. Yeah, right. That's absolutely right.
How about you, Jared?
Well, I don't really have a specific memory of like when I realized that Stevie was the truth. But one thing that always really stood out to me from the very first time I heard it was the hi-hat. For whatever reason,
the hi-hat,
the hi-hat just is like all the things that Stevie does on the clav and the different keyboards and everything, and the horns, the vocal melodies. It's all great. But there's something special about, especially in a lot of his tunes. It's not all the tunes that you feel this, I guess, at least me, but a lot of them, the hi-hat, it's like there's like 3 of them happening at the same time or something, but they're just perfectly placed, and it was just Stevie's touch on the hi-hat.
I have a little bit insight into that. I have heard like from a friend of a friend, the drummer who plays with Stevie Wonder nowadays, he's played with him for a couple years now. He said that when he started playing with him, he had to almost relearn the songs and like how to play them, because a lot of them were played by Stevie himself. Like he played drums. He was actually a really good drummer. So he had to think like, how would someone who's never seen someone else play the drums play drums?
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So that's exactly what Stevie Wonder was doing, and that's kind of interesting because the drums are a pretty visual instrument.
Definitely.
And I teach drums, so teaching kids, a lot of times they get it when they see you do it. They can watch what you're doing, and he never got to do that at all. But there's some footage of him playing out. You can watch him.
Like I saw him doing like a jazz solo or something like that.
Crazy technique that you would never ever see someone else.
The song, the one that sticks out to me is "Knocks Me Off My Feet."
Yeah.
The hi-hat part on that, and he's like the way he's hitting it, like no one would do it like that.
And Superstition is super obvious too. It just is.
Oh yeah, all of them.
You just listen to it and you're like, man, there's like, there is a pattern, but it's cool.
That was who wrote that little drum part, at least. Stevie and Jeff Beck in the studio.
Oh, really?
Superstition. Yeah. Jeff Beck sat down at the drums. Stevie walked into the studio, apparently, the story goes, and said, like, dude, keep playing that, and jumped on the clav, and they started jamming, and Superstition came out. Yeah.
Oh, how about that? That's amazing. That's amazing.
Cool little story.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That's actually, I learned that from Jack Stratton's Funklet. He has all like the little like facts about each groove that's on the Funklet.
Yeah.
That's the little fact that's on there about Superstition.
Cool.
Man. That's awesome. I love just reading through there.
That's pretty
awesome.
amazing. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and actually, that was one of the things I was thinking about for a topic for another episode of this was to talk to drummers and talk about Stevie the drummer, because he's just his style is so unique. Like I can tell immediately. That was like when I was in my 20s and I was in one of my first like original band, and the whole "we're gonna be stars, man," kind of thing was like. My rock star dream was that we'd be famous and rich enough and influential enough that we could convince Stevie Wonder to come in and play drums on a song. I'm like, come in and play, man. Like, because we're all friends, because we're all rock stars, and all that sort of thing. So.
That would be a pretty esoteric podcast.
A little bit. I saw a video online just the other day of this guy playing at a hotel. He's just doing like a solo gig or whatever, like any of us would do. And he's singing, and all of a sudden Stevie Wonder walks in, and he's playing Superstition, and Stevie Wonder got up on stage and sang it with him.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and he didn't know the second verse, so he's like toning the words.
Stevie was just staying it.
I was like, I know it.
It's so cool, though.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, like, I'm not a big like I want to meet everybody kind of person, but he's on my short list of
seriously.
people that would be super awesome to meet or have dinner with. Like, he's not Tom Petty's at the top of the list, but that's just I don't know. Dinner with Tom Petty just sounds like he'd have wise.
Sounds like a book.
Dinner with Tom Petty. Sweet. So you guys are playing. The song you picked was "As" from Songs of the Key of Life. Right. Talk to us about that, because I'll be honest. Like I gotta kind of. I have a confession that I was expecting you to pick something a little more mainstream, because you guys do Stevie Wonder covers. Right. And it's, like Higher Ground, or it's, Superstition or something like that, or I Wish. That's right. And so when you came back and you were like, we're going to do As. And I was like, okay. Wasn't expecting that, but all right. So then I had to pick the more mainstream tune, which is not how I expected. So talk to me about that. Why did you pick As?
Honestly, the reason I picked it is because it is just one of my favorite Stevie Wonder songs. I've just always came back to that tune. The groove in the chorus section is it's just so good. What can you say?
It's wicked.
Just locked in, just grooving along like no other. And I just love that tune. I always come back to it. That's the reason.
Same here. It's just funky, and it's. I found out in high school that was Herbie Hancock on the keys.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And it made so much sense. It's just very tasty, and that, like you said, that chord progression in the chorus I could just listen to over and over again.
I never thought about that before, but then when I think about that, like that solo and there's that shake, that's
Herbie Hancock.
Yep, yeah, and I'm like, that's a Herbie thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely a Herbie thing. So
and I think we needed an excuse to learn another Stevie Wonder tune.
Yeah,
indeed. I think there's always a good reason for that. So.
And an excuse to feature backup singers.
Indeed, also that.
Good point.
Which is super awesome. So that'll be really, really cool to hear. So would that? I'm trying to think and I'll probably cut this out because I'm babbling, but maybe not. I don't know. What record do you feel like? I mean, that one's on Songs of the Key of Life.
Okay.
Would you guys say that that's probably your favorite album of his, or is there another one that kind of resonates with you more?
Intervisions for me.
Intervisions? Yeah.
I mean, I love Songs in the Key of Life as well, but Intervisions is fantastic. I mean, I guess so many Stevie records. Hotter Than July is great.
Oh, yeah,
It's all great for sure.
Yeah.
But those two, the first two I mentioned, are my favorites for sure.
Especially because Songs in the Key of Life, I mean, it's a masterpiece. It's a double album. There's so many. But Intervisions is just one tight, solid record, and it's just great. Got all the jams on it.
Oh, yeah.
As I was listening back to some records, like I felt like throughout the 70s, through that like classic period with those records, like Music of My Mind and stuff like that, like there's this hunger, that goes through four of the records, and then it's almost like when he got to Songs of the Key of Life, like he knew, I'm the shit, I can do anything. And it's almost like, in a way, I mean, it's like I would echo that it's a masterpiece and it's a wonderful piece of work, but I almost miss the hunger, that you hear on Intervisions or on Talking Book.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like when you listen, they're so tightly packaged songs, like really, really like he's just getting right to it, and there's this sort of like. I don't know, just like the best way I can describe it is a hunger that I hear in there that he
like
really wants to.
Totally.
That he really wants to show what he can do. And when you get to Songs of the Key of Life, it's like sort of like, yep, I'm here.
Yeah, he's got like all the room he wants.
Yep.
And he just that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Can you imagine? One thing I learned recently, it's kind of not apropos to that, but. One thing I learned recently is that he almost got dropped from Motown. Did you know that?
Really? I did not.
Yeah, it was when really early in his career, but at first, he did Fingertips.
Yeah.
And he was sort of like this, like novelty. I was like, hey, look at this little kid who plays a harmonica and he's blind. Isn't he cute? Check that out. Little Stevie Wonder, right? And then like after that, his voice started to change as it does. And they were going to drop him, actually. And I can't remember. Somebody talked Berry Gordy into not dropping him and giving him another chance, and that's when he did. I think Uptight came after that, and then that's when he had all those hits as like an older teenager. Right. But there was a period of time where he almost got dropped from Motown. And can you imagine like what would have happened if he went through with it? What if they dropped him from Motown? Would he like ended up somewhere else? Would he have been like working at the Secretary of State office in Saginaw or something like that. You know, like, yeah, I was on Motown a long time ago. You know, and it's Stevie Wonder. You know,
right. That's a good point.
I would like to think that somebody else would pick him up.
You would think.
With those tunes and that. I mean, just that voice. And such a little kid, too. I mean, his first hits were when he was like 14 years old. That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. It's really crazy. That really blew my mind when I read that. I'm like, you almost got dropped. What?
Yeah,
you know, like one of those bullet dodge moments in musical history.
Not making his high school basketball.
Yes. Right, exactly. You know, it just I shudder to think.
Isn't that story like he didn't make a varsity when he was a freshman?
I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first heard it, it's like, wow, he didn't make it? And then, like, you find out it's like, well, he was in 7th grade and he didn't make the varsity team. But, you know, still, he didn't make it.
Better to say he didn't make his high school basketball.
He was 4, but he didn't make the team.
So, Daryl, I want to shoot that question back at you. Why did you pick Higher Ground for us?
That's a really good question. I actually, when I was kind of making up my list of songs, they were much deeper cuts. Like, I think I picked Jesus Children of America was one of them.
Talked about that one.
I think Too High was on my short list. Ooh, they were all Intervisions tunes.
Awesome.
And there was another one. I can't remember what it was. But I was going deep because I was expecting you guys to pick something that was more accessible, I guess. So then when you guys went deep, I'm like, and I don't know, like it's hard to explain exactly. I kind of vibe out a song, and I think of the band and I think of the people in the band, and I'm fortunate enough to know you guys really, really well, and you know, because of that, I can just kind of go, yeah, that song.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, just something just in the back of your head. It's just like Higher Ground. That's the song. And I've been kind of following that logic with everybody so far that I've talked to about doing the podcast. You know, it was like Antoine Stanley, for example, like the first song that popped in my head was All in Love is Fair.
Yes.
And I just kind of went, I told him, I'm like, you can pick whatever you want. You're doing that song. I feel almost selfish. Like, in a way, this podcast is me putting together, like, my favorite Stevie Wonder cover, like mixtape, you know, in a way, like it's kind of making this like cover mixtape for me, and then I'm just sharing it with everybody else too.
That's awesome, man.
Like,
I'm glad you're doing it, man.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
thanks for having us be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well,
it's even cooler. We're the first.
You're the first.
Yes.
You're the launch band on my birthday.
The guinea pig.
It's your birthday?
What?
When this podcast comes out, it is my birthday on May 8th. Yeah, not today, but no, not today. All right. Well, I guess what we'll do, why don't we take a second, and if you had 30 seconds to send a message to Stevie Wonder, because somewhere in my fevered brain, I'm hoping that somehow it's like, hey, Stevie, there's this podcast about you. Really? Let's hear this, you know, and then and he would check. That was the worst Stevie Wonder impression.
Yeah, you got to work on that.
On Earth. I'm really sorry. Anyway, but
Steve, if you're listening,
so yeah,
sorry.
But if you had the opportunity to have 30 seconds or a minute or whatever, you know, the time isn't really important. Just a concise way. What would you say to the maestro, Mr. Wonder?
I would say thank you so very much for speaking nothing but truth and just putting everything you have into music and just doing it because he obviously loves it. You know, that it shows so much through his music. It's timeless, and I'm going to listen to it forever. So thank you.
Genuine, joyful.
Yep.
Yeah, truthful, funky.
Truthful, definitely.
Just genuine music.
I think we need a T-shirt that says "Stevie is the truth."
Yes,
Right.
I'll buy it.
Pretty sweet.
I'll pre-order that.
So much truth.
All right, well, let's get to some music then.
Let's do it.
All right.
Sweet.
As around the sun, the earth knows she's revolving. The rosebuds know to bloom in early May. Just as ain't no love's the cure, you can rest your mind ashore that I'll be loving you always. If now can reveal the mystery of tomorrow, good in passing will grow older every day. Just as all is born is new, to know I say is true, that I'll be loving you always.
Until the rainbow burns the stars out in the sky.
Always.
Until the oceans cover every mountain high.
Always.
Until the dolphins fly and parrots live at sea.
Always.
Until a dream of life and life becomes a dream.
Did you know that true love lasts for nothing? Her acceptance is the way we pay. Did you know that life is giving love a guarantee to last through forever and another day? Just as time knew to move on since the beginning, the seasons know exactly when to change. Just as kindness knows no shame, know through all your joy and pain, that I'll be loving you always. 'Cause today I know I'm living, but tomorrow can make for me the past I mustn't fear. For I know deep in my mind the love of me I've left behind, for I'll be loving you always.
Until the day is night and night becomes the day.
Always.
And here's the Social Bandits playing Higher Ground.
preachers keep on preaching. Worlds keep on turning. Guess it won't be too long. Oh no. Lovers keep on loving. Believers keep on believing. Sleepers just stop sleeping. 'Cause it won't be too long, yeah. Oh no. And I'm so glad that he let me try it again. It's my last time on earth, I live my whole world in sin. I'm so glad that I know more than I knew then. 'Cause I'll keep on trying till I reach my highest ground, yeah. Nobody's gonna bring me down, yeah, yeah. Nobody's bringing Jerry down. So glad that he let me try it again. It's my last time on earth, I left my whole world of sin. I'm so glad that I know more than I knew then. 'Cause I'll keep on trying till I reach my highest ground. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Social Bandits, for the great interview and for those two great songs. And thank you for joining us for this premiere podcast of the Year of Living Stevie. We're going to be doing this for a while, hopefully, and we'll be coming to you every 2 weeks on Monday. So make sure that you kind of set your feeds or whatever it is you need to do. Feed your head, I don't know, whatever the case might be. Our next episode is going to be on May 22nd, and it features a group called Escaping Pavement. They're an Americana group, and they have some cool covers, and I'm really looking forward to what they have to say and what they're going to be playing for us. So please make sure you check in with us on May 22nd and download that episode and check it out. And you might be saying to yourself, hey, how do I find out what's going on in your podcast world? You can follow us on Facebook at Year of Living Stevie on Facebook is the name of our webpage. If you follow that, we'll have updates for things that are going on and pictures and videos and all sorts of cool stuff. You can also follow us on Twitter at Living Stevie. So if you go to Twitter and our handle is Living Stevie, or if you have any questions or comments you'd like to email, you can do that by emailing livingstevie@gmail.com. Please make sure you take the time to leave a review on iTunes. That really helps us out a lot and helps other people find our show that might be interested in it as well. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Stevie's the truth. See you later, folks.
Mr. Stevie Wonder. Mr. Stevie Wonder. Mr. Stevie Wonder. Mr. Stevie Wonder.
Head to abnormalentertainment.com for all of our podcasts and blogs. Go to cinemaheadcheese.com for our movie reviews and news. Don't forget our YouTube channels, Abnormal Podcast and Cinema Head Cheese. Get us on Twitter at Abnormal Podcasts. And find all of our shows and Abnormal Entertainment on Facebook.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.